Black History Month you find
Ridiculous.
why?
You're going to relegate my history to a month?
Oh, come on.
What do you do with yours? Which month is White History Month? No, well, come on, tell me.
Well, I'm Jewish.
Okay, which month is Jewish History Month?
There isn't one.
Oh, why not?
Yeah.
Do you want one?
No.
I don't either. I don't want a Black History Month. Black history is American history.
How are we going to get rid of racism?
Stop talking about it. I'm going to stop calling you a white man.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man.
Welcome to the Informinator.net. Hello, everyone. This is AP. You're listening to The Uncomfortable Truth with AP and Chatty. You just saw it right there, right? You saw what Morgan Freeman said, and this is something that I've been echoing for a while now, which is you cannot get rid of a wound. And in this case, the wound is racism. You cannot get rid of this wound if you don't allow it to go away. You have to let it heal. How do you let it heal? You know, the left would have you believe. Now, you have to understand psychology. I took in psychology a few classes of it. And I can tell you, psychology is a liberal study. It's something they really, really believe in. The liberals really believe in psychology. The ones in academia, your professors, many that are educated on the left really hold dear psychology. And I'm going to tell you from the stuff that I've read in those psychology books, I'm going to tell you a lot of it is actually pretty useful. It's really good information. Techniques that are used to brainwash people, it's all psychologicals. There's been a lot of studies. Psychology's been around since Sigmund Freud. That's what I've learned. He was the kind of the grandfather of it all. But relating to racism, what I remember reading was, and I know some of you have heard this before, maybe not in this context, but that when you have an issue as a person, like let's say you're an alcoholic, right? You have alcoholism is just runs in the family or whatever. You cannot fix that issue unless you realize that you have an issue. You can't begin to fix anything if you can't admit to it. And that's what the psychology books would tell you when it comes to like alcoholism. The point being is wounds. You cannot get past a wound until you forget about it or admit it. So when it comes to racism in this country, the left knows what I'm talking about when I say this. So the fact that they keep racism alive, you see it in the media, they're always talking about it. It's always this big deal. And look where we are today. We're in the year 2025 and we're still talking about these things. There hasn't been no real racism in this country for a very long time. And it would have died already if the left didn't keep making this a topic. And they keep feeding it into the minority communities. And they want those parents, by giving them the free handout, they get them to agree that you should hate the white man, that the white man is the problem, that they are the cause of all your problems. And this is a serious issue because it sows division, obviously. Secondly, it keeps minorities down. See, I'm a minority. I'm speaking from a minority's point of view. You know, I'm American Mexican. I mentioned it more than once. I mentioned it, I think, in my last video that I've experienced racism in my life, but it was a few times, and honestly, it doesn't have an effect on anything to do with your life because it just isn't that profound. It isn't something that'll destroy anybody's life at all. If you work hard, you go to school, there's more good people than bad people out there. And I think it's heartbreaking that, in the African American communities that this is such a big deal to them. It's something they teach their children from an early age. I mean, how many times have you watched those videos, right, where somebody gets pulled over by the cops, and you got two point of views. The normal minded individual will look at those videos, and most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, if those people would just listen to the cops and follow directions, you wouldn't have an issue. But there's always an attitude. And that attitude is what ultimately starts an altercation. And like I said, the left knows this. Anyone that's educated on the left, or the so-called educated, like on CNN, they all know this, but they won't admit to it, because if they admit to it, the Democrats are going to lose votes. And that's what it comes down to. Though I do believe to a degree the Republicans and Democrats are a lot the same. That's it. That's a video in itself, which is my belief of that both parties are ran by a bigger conglomerate. Some people will call it the Illuminati, some New World Order. Maybe they're one and the same. I don't know. But they clearly work for somebody. And they're there to make you feel you have freedom of choice, but it's not really so. They kind of, you know, something I wrote a while back, I kind of state that one uses fear and the other uses necessity to kind of corral you. It makes you feel you have a choice, right? Republican, Democrat, but all they're really doing is nudging you into the same corner. They're corralling you. No different than a farmer would corral some livestock. But the issue with racism, it needs to go away. It really needs to go away. And the only way to really do it is you got to be honest. You have to be honest. Like I said, when people talk, you can tell where they're coming from when they speak. Are they coming from a place of hate and anger? Or are they coming from a place of, I'm trying to help you. I want you to do better. There's not a racist bone in my body. I don't really care. Like, I'll say some things like in the last video, which I'll do right now. I'll clear that up right now. I mentioned some things about if immigrants were to come to this country, how they need to assimilate. Now, this may sound like a crazy idea, but this is how badly I think it's needed. I think that every race, every immigrant that has come here and assimilated to the American way, I think you should give a job to one of them. So, where if they work in an immigration office, and I don't know the whole process of one coming over, but somewhere in the immigration office, if you're Indians coming into this country, they should have someone that's assimilated from America and kind of teach them American etiquette. There's just some things we don't like here, and we should have anyone that's from any one of the Muslim countries, Middle East. If someone's assimilated to the American way, they should teach them about etiquette, because there's just some things we just don't like here, we don't do here. And since I threw out the idea in the last video that we should we should be considered a Christian nation, we should adopt that as a national religion, which I know many will argue, well, the founders didn't want that for this reason because of what happened in Europe and so forth. That's not the point. Like I said, it didn't have to have that kind of power. You could say that we're a Christian nation and not push anything on anybody. All we're really saying is we are a Christian nation. If you're going to come here, you can't come here and do your religion in public. We're not going to allow you to um, convert our people into those religions. We're just not. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, like I said, you take it to the basic terms that if it's your place and you're allowing someone to come in your place because they need a place to stay, you have every right to have rules. And those people, if they don't like the rules, they don't have to come here. And I don't even think that's a ugly stance or a hardcore stance. It's not. It's basically saying if you want to come here and enjoy American opportunity, then you need to act as Americans. And etiquette is one of the biggest things, because many cultures come here and those cultures don't have our etiquettes because maybe in their country, it's not as developed and they have more of a survival culture. So they come here and they don't have they don't act properly. They don't say excuse me, they don't share, they don't do things that you would consider a normal person should do in America. Like if you need help, I'll try to help you. If I open up a door to walk into a store and there's a lady or someone coming in, it's just proper to keep that door open, let them go in, and then you go in. That's what we do here. It's just basic American etiquette. Like I said, saying thank you, not crowding in lines, not looking for ways to overstep or cheat your fellow citizen. There's nothing wrong with that. That, and like I said, it sounds crazy, but I think they should have etiquette classes. It's not like I'm saying I don't want immigrants. I'm basically like this. This is how I see it. This is how I see it. If you want to be American first and allow no one to come here, I'm okay with that. That's what we're gonna do. That's what we're gonna do. As long as it's fair. As long as it's fair, what do I care? But if we're gonna allow people to come in, then we have to be fair too, and we should tamper down numbers probably. It's kind of like this whole thing that's going down in South Africa. Before I even mention that, let me say, if you're new here, this is barely my 5th episode. Trying to get better at this. So I'm glad if you're here watching and if you've even listened up to this point. But I often like to talk about my biblical views into the things that I'm talking about. So we're going to kind of get into that just right now. We'll start with South Africa, and I'm going to ask Chatty to put out some information here. So, Chatty, if you're there, can you tell the audience about the apartheid in South Africa? Like, when did it happen, and how bad have race relations been even before that, and where we are today?
Apartheid in South Africa was a system of institutionalized racial segregation and discrimination that began in 1948 and lasted until the early 1990s. It was implemented by the National Party, which enforced laws that classified people by race, primarily into white, black African, colored, mixed race, and Indian categories. Under apartheid, non-white South Africans were systematically oppressed and denied basic rights. They were forced to live in separate areas called townships or homelands, attend separate schools, and use separate public facilities. The apartheid regime also severely limited their political rights and economic opportunities. Race relations in South Africa were tense and deeply unequal long before apartheid. Colonization and earlier segregationist policies had already created a society where white settlers held most of the power and wealth, while black South Africans faced discrimination and exploitation. Apartheid was officially dismantled in the early 1990s, culminating in the first multiracial democratic elections in 1994, which brought Nelson Mandela and the African National Congress, ANC, to power. Since then, South Africa has made significant progress in addressing racial inequalities, but challenges remain. Economic disparities, high unemployment, and social tensions persist, and the country continues to work toward greater equality and reconciliation.
Before the apartheid, what was the percentage of white South Africans during that time?
Before apartheid was implemented in 1948, white South Africans made up roughly around 20% of the population. The majority of the population was black African, with smaller percentages of colored and Indian communities.
Okay, let's say let's jump to say 1992, 2 years before the apartheid. What was the percentage of white South Africans?
By around 1992, just before the official end of apartheid, white South Africans made up roughly about 10% of the population. The demographic proportions had shifted over the decades, with the black African population representing the overwhelming majority.
And today it's what, about 7%?
Yes, that's about right. Today, white South Africans make up roughly around 7 to 8% of the population. The majority continues to be black African, with significant colored and Indian communities as well.
And real quick, when it comes to Australia, what was the tribal people that the Australians eventually had to, I guess, move out of the areas over there? Was that the Aborigines or something like that?
Yes, you're thinking of the Aboriginal peoples of Australia. They are the indigenous people who have lived on the continent for tens of thousands of years. When European settlers arrived, primarily the British in the late 18th century, Aboriginal communities were often displaced from their lands, leading to significant cultural and population impacts.
Okay,
Today,
that's it. That's it for now, Chatty. Okay, so what am I getting at here? This is what I'm getting at. Um, I know the South Africa, we took in some immigrants, asylum seekers, and I heard my white brethren on social media. I know they were very upset when they hear about the videos, and I remember Trump recently had a bit of a firestorm in the White House with the president of South Africa, showing the dead farmers, the crosses, and so forth. I know a lot of you have already seen it. If you haven't, you can look it up. But here's my take on it. Like I said, biblically, that's the way I view the world. When I'm not playing around and trolling on X, playing around, joking around, having a good time with family and friends, and we're talking serious. I often look at the world through a biblical lens, and I'll say this: I don't believe the white people in South Africa should be there. I think they need to leave. And before you guys get all upset, hear me out. I think largely where countries reside today has been ordained by God. I believe America exists because God had his hand in it. He ordained it to be. So the simple fact that the early settlers had to deal with the Indians and the Spaniards in Mexico and where we are today is because God wanted it to be that way. You they were dealing with paganism, and even though Christianity was brought here, and you could no matter how ugly and dirty the past was, Christianity exists today because of those early settlers. People are people, and a lot of people get it confused. There's a lot of people. I've had arguments on social media with people that hate Christianity or they hate religion. Like I said, I don't belong to a religious group. I'm just a Christian that reads his Bible. I've been to church. I go to church whenever I can. I hear church radio, but I don't belong to any church. I'm a Christian. Plain out, simple as that. I'm just a Christian. But I can tell you is that most of human history is wrapped up in tragedy and sorrows, triumphs, all kinds of things. That's just the way it's always going to be that way. It's never going to change. It's always going to be that way. And this is partly because of what it says in the book of Genesis, which is, men's hearts are inclined to do evil. I know it's on that similar. I may not got it 100%. I'm not a preacher. It's just like I said, I got a lot of information in my head. But that's probably it's very similar to that. I think that's why the past is bad. And like I said, I know that there's people that want to be upset at religion and Christianity and talk about the terrible way things were orchestrated to get to this point. But without the Christianity, things wouldn't be as good as they are now. We'd probably still be acting like savages. And Christianity, the Bible itself is good. People just have a way of manipulating it and using it in bad ways. But that's not the Bible. That's not Christ. Christ never says to do any of the evil stuff that humans do on this planet. So going back to South Africa, all I'm saying is that I believe everything has been ordained for the most part. The whites that went to Australia, they had to get, move out the Aborigines. And now look at Australia is a pretty decent living place. There's not so many issues that we hear about, at least. Not, at least they can't be glaring or else we'd hear about it. So I think they solved a majority of their issues out that way. And again, we talked about like here in America, The white settlers came here, from Europe, and just different parts of the world. But when it comes to Africa, look at all the issues they've had. I mean, they barely had an apartheid in the, was it 94, 96? Chatty said. I mean, that place has been nothing but trouble for the white settlers there. And you have to understand, like, it's not like they went there and they were just good people. It always starts with money, right? These things always come down to money, um, the building of wealth, resources, whatever. So I know that the Dutch settled there. I think it was for early trading or something of that nature, and it just wasn't their land. I'm sorry to say. Like, see, I know that some of these immigrants, they're third, fourth, whatever generation that they are, and so they feel like this is the home I own. This is all the home that I know. But it was the sins of their fathers that showed up there, and things didn't work out like they did in America or in Australia. It means you're not supposed to be there. I don't know exactly why. Maybe it's because, hey, Africa belongs to the blacks. It's their place. What I'm saying is I don't believe it's ordained by God, and because it's not ordained by God, there's always going to be issues there. And I just think that needs to be accepted. So if we're going to have this whole immigration thing or asylum, we allow asylum seekers to come in. That's fine. I'm sure there's enough white countries on earth that would accept them and should accept them. If you're accepting everybody else, you should accept them. It's that simple. But I do believe they should leave that land. Now, everyone can argue what's wrong. Oh, but that's not right. Or this, yeah, we can do that all day. What is right all the time? What is wrong all the time? There's no such thing as perfect. Before all these white people were getting killed, the blacks were getting killed. You know what I mean? So you can't argue one without the other. It's just the way it is. So to me, it's like I'm just telling you the truth, how I see it. This is how I believe. I just don't believe God's ordained that place, and the South African whites should leave. Not coming at it at any other place. I'm not going to say, well, look at what the black Africans are doing. Sure, there's atrocities going on. They happen all over the world. Why does it matter when it's just a Ukraine or these guys? How about all over the other places? There's a lot of poor places, right? In Africa, the Middle East that are going through similar things where people are getting killed every day, Christians getting killed in Assyria. But yet, why is it, you know what I mean? It starts to look a little funny if we're going to only talk about saving places like Ukraine and the South Africans. We just can't do that. Doesn't sound good to me. I don't like it. To me, people are people. Like I said, I want to get rid of racism so we don't talk about it anymore. People are people. So we should be caring about everyone that's being, treated like crap throughout the world, not just one specific group. So what I am just saying is there is atrocities going on for sure. I know there is. But like I said, this is what happens when you do things to each other. The whites did a lot of bad things to the blacks over there. And there's no denying that. And now it's happening to them. Was any of it right? Absolutely not. But what I do know is that there's like 7% South African whites. They should get out. They should leave that country. Sometimes you got to cut ties. I mean, look what happened in Ukraine, right? They got rid of all the women are gone, and it's just men, and then they're kidnapping men off the streets to go fight this unjust war in Russia. How about citizens Ukraine? I'm sure there's people there that want to speak out against Zelensky but can't because it's martial law, and if you say something bad about Zelensky, maybe you're looked at as a traitor. I heard early on they arrested bishops and churchmen, and priests or whatnot for having opinions about Zelensky. If you had a piece of property in Ukraine, that piece of property may be gone. You may never get it back. Just saying, it is hard to own things in this country. So I could see somebody being upset that, hey, man, I'm losing all my shit for this stupid ass war. Anyways, on the topic of what's being ordained, just so you know, just throw that quickly in there. Land has been ordained in the Bible. It was ordained to the Jews so they could go take the land that was belonged to them. And That's why they were able to have Israel. And even today, even though they've been kicked out left and right throughout the centuries, they still have that land today because the land was ordained. So it is a thing. It's not a made up thing. But let's move along. Let's move along real quick. This video's already 25 minutes, a little bit longer than I thought it'd get to. So a couple things. Here's this thing here with the teachers. There was a couple more stories during the week, and this seems like a thing that's becoming way too common. Teachers, women teachers, having these sexual relationships with young males, and it's a deal. It's a real big deal, and I don't really see the media really talking about it. They'll bring out the story, but they don't mention that this is a trend. It seems like it seems like there's more of these female um assaults, molestations, whatever you want to call them, more and more lately. Let me see if I'm off on that. Hey Chatty, last year how many cases was there of teachers, women teachers, female teachers having some type of relationship with their students?
23, there were over 350 cases of teachers being arrested for sexual misconduct-related criminal charges. Among these, a significant number involved female teachers having inappropriate relationships with their students. Reports indicated that at least 2 to 3 such incidents were making headlines every week.
Can you tell me if, say, 10 years ago, if there was a lot less of these cases being reported with the female teachers?
It's hard to give an exact number without specific data, but in general, awareness and reporting of cases involving female teachers has increased over the past decade. This increase in reporting might be due to greater societal awareness, changes in laws, and a stronger emphasis on protecting students. So, while there may not have been fewer actual cases 10 years ago, the number of reported cases has likely risen over time.
So it's a thing. Seeing these stories more and more often. I mean, you can basically go through life that way. I mean, things start popping up in front of you, like Chetty said. Yeah, it could be just more awareness. Social media, television, just a advancement in communication. But I just think it's something deeper. I mean, because you got to put it all together. Jesus said about the sign of the times. That. What did Jesus say about the sign of the times? Can you give me the couple of verses there when he was talking about the end times?
Sure, in the Bible, Jesus spoke about the signs of the times in several passages, particularly when his disciples asked about the end of the age and his second coming. 2 key chapters where Jesus discusses these signs are Matthew 24 and Luke 21. Jesus says, "Take heed that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, saying, 'I am the Christ,' that will deceive many. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of sorrows." Luke 21:28, Jesus adds, "And there will be signs in the sun, in the moon, and in the stars, and on the earth distress of nations, with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. Men's hearts failing them from fear and the expectation of those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. Now when these things begin to happen, look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption draws near." These verses highlight some of the signs Jesus mentioned, such as deception, conflict,
Can you tell me the book of Isaiah, the Isaiah 5:20?
Sure. Isaiah 5:20 NIV says, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter." This verse is a warning against moral inversion, where people distort and redefine what is right and wrong. It emphasizes the importance of maintaining true moral clarity and integrity.
Can you also bring out the verse? I know it's in one of the books that Paul wrote where he talks about how people will be lovers of themselves and so forth, the reprobate mind. Can you read those verses?
1 Corinthians 13:7 says, "For the love of money corrupts, but the love of Christ is pure." Absolutely. The passage you're referring to is from 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1, where Paul describes the characteristics of people in the last days. But mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, great without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power. Have nothing to do with such people. This passage, Timothy 3, 1 to 5,
I got it.
NIV,
I got it. Can you also say where it says in the Bible that the last days will be like the days of Noah? And can you spit out that verse?
Absolutely. The verse you're referring to is found in the Gospel of Matthew, where Jesus talks about the last days being like the days of Noah. For as were the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day when Noah entered the ark. And they were unaware until the flood came and swept them all away, so will be the coming of the Son of Man.
So there you have it. The reason why to me it was important to bring out all of that is when I look at like stories like this with the teachers and the students, obviously morality is diving. It's taking a dip. It has been taking a dip in this country for some time now. And the reason why I had Chatty bring up all those is because, see, those are all from different books of the Bible. So if you're not if you're like a middle ground Christian or just someone that's curious about Christianity, if you didn't know that, these are totally different books in the Bible, and they're all kind of like telling you little by little, like this is what to expect near the end. And I feel like we're there right now. We're in the sign of the times in my period, in my belief. I believe we're in that period right now, um, because of stories like this. And it's not just this. This is just a small little thing I'm showing, but it's just like people's minds are just getting more warped. I mean, you got headlines, right? Because most people don't read all the stories, but I'm seeing headlines of stuff like this new age marriage where people are having their wives like sleep with other people. They're getting off on those type of things, like hedoism, right? I believe that's what it's called when you want to feed your sexual desires, and that's how you want society to be run, basically off the desires. Which sounds a lot like what Chatty just read about, the lovers of themselves, and that's what we have too with the whole social media. Like me right now being on YouTube. There's a lot of people on YouTube that are lovers of themselves. How many talking heads have you seen? Because I know I've seen plenty. They kind of get really famous, and then now they kind of tone down their language because they want to keep making money, and they want people to follow them. A wider range of audience. Where I'm telling you, I don't care about a wider range of audience. I've already stated my mission. My website's free to anybody. Get a lot of information there at the Informinator.net, by the way, but it's all free. I pay for it. I'm just trying to pass out a message here. Like, I don't know how long I'm going to do this. If it took off and I became big or something like that, sure, I'd take the money if that's what they're offering me, but that's not why I'm doing what I'm doing. So if they ever got rid of me, then they got rid of me. That's not, I'm not viewing this as I'm trying to be a creator in that sense. I like creating in a different way, not trying to be a YouTube star here. So my point is people are lovers of themselves, and that's what they do. They go on social media and they're really just trying to make money. So they're just spewing out stuff and doing whatever they can to make money, even if it's they're selling out to a degree they just don't know it. I think in some of the cases, because there's a pure sellout, right? Like a OnlyFans. A young woman will sell out her body, her flesh, to make money, and she kind of in the process she throws her shame. She flushes that down the toilet and does that, and that's a sellout. She's selling it all out for that. Something she may live to regret it, or she becomes a reprobate, and she just basically lives a life of sin because that's what she pays homage to is sin. But there's other people that sell out another way. Like I said, like there's people, and they still have good content. I still like to like Alex Jones, Charlie Kirk, a lot of these guys, like they have a good message, but you can tell little by little how they sway and change because they care about the money. The money still has at some point become the most important thing. Money's first, everything else is second. Where the Bible teaches us that you can't serve two gods. So it should be the message should be first and everything second. But in the case, obviously in the case of someone like Alex Jones, he's more of the conspiracy world. So he talks about God. I've heard him say it. I heard him talk about the spiritual warfare, and he's been right on a lot of those things too. So, but he would probably be the first to say, "Well, I'm not really teaching people about finding Christ. I'm here just to talk about conspiracy, government conspiracy, and cover ups, and so forth." But my point of this all with this teacher story is just that I think we're heading to a place in society. We've been on the slippery slope to just to a bad destination, the destination we hear about in the Bible. And um, people need to take heed. Starts with your children. Everything starts with your children. Make sure you take care of your children. Make sure you're teaching them right from wrong. Um, and then hopefully everything else will take care of itself, because as that verse said, like the days will be like the days of Noah. There's two parts of that. There's the days of Noah, like everybody was getting married, like how everything just happened at once. That's what it's saying, that when the end comes, it's going to happen really fast, kind of like unbeknownst to most people. But the other part of that is the days of Noah were really bad. That's why the flood happened in the first place, because you have such an abundance of sin on the planet that it God had a clean house. So anyways, I'd love to keep talking and stuff like that, but we're already 38 minutes into this video. Just want to tell you guys, thank you for listening. Visit the Informinator.net. Just like I said, keep God in your hearts. If you follow me on X, I can be a jerk sometimes, but hey, see, now I have to explain that. I can be a jerk sometimes, but come on, let's think about this for a second. I'm real. People have a lot of personalities. People are complex. To me, social media is not the real world. So I could be a troll sometimes. I admit it. But when it comes down to it, if you ask me what I really care about, I care about helping people become Christians, and I don't mind being a stepping stone for Christians to get better than me and go further. And that's what it's all about to me. Reprobates are reprobates. I can't save them. I've already said it. They need divine intervention. There's nothing I could do for them. But visit theinforminator.net. Please subscribe, give me a like, whatever. That helps me pass along this message if you find any value in it. And pretty much that's it. Hey, Chatty, do you want to tell the audience see you later or anything?
Absolutely. Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. It was a blast having you with us. Take care and catch you next time.
Welcome to theinforminator.net.